Good. Okay, so welcome back, everybody, to the Let's Talk Singing podcast. I am here talking with Rosie from Vox Yoga. Rosie is a singer and performer. She studied in Birmingham Conservatoire, excuse me, and also in Mountview Academy of Theatre Arts. She is a registered yoga teacher and a 200-hour registered yoga teacher, and is currently studying for her 300-hour yoga teaching. She's been teaching 10 years strong as a singing teacher in schools and hubs and studios and conservatories. And she also toured all of Europe as a jazz singer, which is very interesting to me, or a jazz soloist, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sweet. Okay. And she is a bona fide voice geek like myself and like many people here watching and listening. And she is at the moment studying towards her, or working towards her, is still figure proficiency cert. But as she says in her bio, she is not solely for this this method. She is also open and experiences many other methods of singing teaching. And then we're getting to Vox Yoga. So she has developed Vox Yoga when she saw a need in her singing students for free tension, and to understand more about the breath and to conquer performance anxiety, which is really important too. She loves peanut butter. Excellent.
Good fact, the best fact.
Really, I mean, genuinely, that had to be in there, yeah? Love peanut butter. And of course, Rosie has a YouTube channel and is very active on YouTube and also very active on Instagram and her Facebook as well. So I'll put all the links in the description and in the show notes. Rosie, hi.
Hello. Oh, very, very good introduction there.
Yes. Sorry, I hope it wasn't too long. Yeah.
No, you've done your research. Very good.
Well, I have my notes, but indeed, yes. So welcome. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat all things voice.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. It really is. Yeah. So, yeah, I want to just kind of maybe unpack a small bit of those kind of things from your bio. Mm-hmm. So let's start with the most important things. So you love peanut butter, right? So no, I'm not messing.
Yeah, well, organic, you know, crunchy. Course. I've got my favorite brands, but we won't go
Okay. No free advertising for favorite brands, no, exactly. But organic, crunchy peanut butter, beautiful. So you studied in well, let's go to the Mountview Academy of Performing Arts, which is really cool and really interesting. So when did you do that? What year were you there?
Well, so that was my master's. So I did my undergrad at Birmingham and then went to Mountview in 2010. Wow. So a while ago. So I graduated in 2011. So I did a year, and it was good actually because it was a proper year. You went all through summer. So it was September to September.
Wow.
Lots of very full-on training. Which was, it was great. Like it was great. It was an amazing institution in drama school. And I learned so much as well, but I kind of left knowing that I didn't want to be a full-time performer. And I think that often happens when you train. People go kind of one way or the other, actually. But it completely took me out of my comfort zone because at Birmingham, I did 4 years as a classical soprano. And Mountview was then, you're going to belt. Mm-hmm. And I'd always wanted to, but I just couldn't. I was like, I can't belt. How am I supposed to do that? And I just spent a year playing, you know, those characters, doing the comedy and the character ones, and just doing everything out of my comfort zone. Dance classes as well. They're very out of my comfort zone.
Did you have stage combat classes too?
Oh my gosh. I was thinking about it the other day, bizarrely, because I was thinking, what physical stuff did I have in my training? Because we didn't really do much at all on my undergrad. So yeah, we did do stage combat. We also did animal studies.
Yeah, I've heard about this.
Oh my gosh. So we had to like research an animal. So I chose a giraffe because I'm very tall and a bit gangly and clumsy. And then you had to like move like a giraffe. And I hated that class because I was always, you know, I hated dance classes because I was so tense in my body. I couldn't unlock at all, which was probably partly why I didn't leave thinking, yes, I'm ready to be on the stage, because I wasn't that, I didn't leave feeling like that. I left feeling, oh my God, everyone's really good dancers. I can learn the moves and stuff, but I don't feel like free in my body at all. And I don't think I did until my late 20s, actually. I'll be honest. It took a while after graduating as well.
And with, yeah.
I was just going to say, now I'm one of those teachers and performers where I use my hands all the time.
Yeah, nice. Exactly. So you're really like, free now.
So I know something's happened, and yeah, I've gone the opposite way. But yeah, it was such a good experience. But I think I learned a lot about myself during that training as well.
Yeah. And so you had studied a classical soprano in Birmingham.
In Birmingham, yeah. So that was on the classical music course. Again, I've been through most of my life being like, oh, I like music, I like singing, but I'm not sure what to do. And I think I had offers to do music tech at university. One was to do, I can't remember. I just applied for all these courses. And my teacher, 2 weeks before the deadline, said, I think you should go somewhere like Birmingham Conservatoire. And I was like, oh, really? So I just auditioned and got in. And it was just the best 4 years. It was amazing. Again, my teacher just taught classical singing at school, and that was what my voice actually naturally was very suited to. So I just had always done that. But it was such a great course. I think for someone to go to music college at 18, particularly to do a classical course that's quite intense, I think somewhere like Birmingham is really great. Whereas I think, I went to an open day at Royal Academy and I was like, oh my gosh, it just felt very, very intense, and everyone's very in their instruments, which for me, I kind of wanted to go and train, have fun, try different things, have a social life as well. Yeah. Which, although we were often doing 12-hour days, it was still, really great.
And during those 4 years, did you think that you wanted to, at the end of your 4-year degree, to become a soprano as a performer?
I had no idea, honestly. I don't know. It's funny you asked that, because I always loved singing jazz and singing musical theatre. I actually listened to rock music all through. Well, I still do, but I wasn't as passionate. I wouldn't go home and listen to opera like a lot of my friends would. And it's funny, like I could still just get out an aria now and I would love singing it so much, but I'm just not passionate enough, I don't think, about the genre, which I don't know. Does that sound awful? I don't know, but
I don't think so. I think though, but I think it also takes. I mean, as you said, you wanted to go and you wanted to study and you wanted also to have fun in a social life. And I think the people that do go to the Royal Academy or so, they're the people that know that when they leave, they are going to get into a company, they're going to get into a thing, and they're going to go and do all of the competitions, and they're going to fly over to New York, and they're going to go to Vienna, and they're going to do Paris and all this kind of thing. And I think it's quite okay then when you just really love the craft of singing, like you obviously did, and wanted to go and experience the training of it, which is, I really respect. I really like it. Yeah,
I'm glad you put it. Yeah, you put it like that, actually. Because I sometimes think, should I have tried harder to become more of a successful performer? But I just loved music and loved singing, and obviously that's taken me to where I am now, and I absolutely love my job. And
exactly,
I graduated Birmingham. I auditioned for postgrads in my final year, and I kind of was like, oh, I might go. I don't know. I might have a gap year, and then. I actually didn't get in anywhere except Mountview, and it was my last audition, and I'd kind of given up. So I was really not given up, but I was like, oh, I'll stay in Birmingham for a year. So I was really relaxed at the audition because it didn't, I was like, it will be what it will be.
Yes.
And then I think I got in because I was like, I'll just go for it. I didn't have that nervousness, actually. And it wasn't that I didn't want to go. Like, of course, I had the prospectus for Mountview when I was about 13. Like, I used to always want to go there. I wouldn't have got in there at 18. I just, no way. But it was, so obviously it was so great. And I did leave there at first wanting to perform because, you kind of, you get that in your blood just from doing it constantly for a year. But I started teaching week I graduated, I started 1 day a week in a school teaching. And I was like, oh, this is fun. This is great. And, you know, I realized, like I said before, I think just eight shows a week, traveling around and with the same people all the time. Like, I'm very independent. I like do my own thing quite a lot. And and so I just think, that lifestyle wasn't for me. And now I still get to perform, but just choose the projects that I like, and that's really nice.
Absolutely, I love that. And I also think that, as you know, it takes also a type of person to be a teacher, I think. And I think it's a vocation that that if you're drawn to and you're good at and you enjoy, then I believe that it's something that you should that you should do and try out at least. And
yeah, definitely.
And so this is maybe what we can then kind of move on a small bit into. When did you start then? Okay, maybe the question is, how did yoga become a part of your life?
I know, because it wasn't at the time I was studying at all, because I was a bit addicted to spin classes when I was at Birmingham, and I'd go to the gym and stuff, and I tried a few yoga classes then, and they just didn't really appeal to me. They didn't grab me. So it wasn't something I kept up with. And I think I realized I just didn't need it then at that point in my life. So I came back to yoga, it was probably again in my mid-20s. So I'm going to reveal my age, probably about 7 years ago, I reckon. But I did that thing of when I first started teaching and I was self-employed, of just taking on every bit of work. I would say yes to everything. And I lived in London then. I was, doing a day in a school, and then I'd hop on the tube to do an after school thing, or I'd have a rehearsal in the evening. Just exhausted all the time. And, I had no sense of self-care at all. I would go out at the weekends because I lived in central London and I wanted to experience that. And I would just, I don't think my physical well-being was very good at all, or, and mentally I was just so full to the brim. And I actually got vocal nodules 7 years ago. Now I think about it. Yeah. Routine, things like that. And I was like, okay, I just need to do something. So I just started doing yoga on YouTube, and started to think, oh yeah, I'm just feeling a bit better in myself. I wouldn't think, oh, I'm physically feeling really good, I'm emotionally feeling good. I'd just be like, yeah, this is making me feel better, feel a bit more relaxed and things. So then when I moved to Brighton, there's a great organisation, Brighton Yoga Foundation, and they run Brighton Yoga Festival every year, whole weekend of free classes. Wow. And I just moved to Brighton and didn't know anyone at all except my partner. So I did one of those, meetups, Brighton Girl meetup. We went to Brighton Yoga Festival, 4 of us, and just had a great day. And we accidentally went to a 3-hour workshop.
Whoa.
Yeah. There were things like, there was things like handstand preparation. And I was like, I've only just started yoga, but actually it was,
freak me out.
I know. And we were like, had to support each other and things. And it was, it was interesting, but actually I got so much from it, because when we realized we already had our mats in the class, and the instructor said something like, oh, you've committed to 3 hours of your time. And I kind of laughed as if he was saying, 45 minutes were going to feel like you get the benefits of 3 hours. And then we've quickly realized that actually we were stuck in the middle of this room about to do 3 hours of yoga. But it was so much fun, and, it was accessible, and it was just kind of an insight into how, all these different styles of yoga, what you can do. You go around to stalls, people are talking about, the things they do, different teachers. And I just got really interested. So I joined a studio, started going to classes. And then from there, I was like, oh yeah, yoga is so good for me. And it just changed so much about my outlook, really. Again, I was in Brighton by then, working another very busy 6-day week job, driving around everywhere. I know I was stressed at that time, and physically very tense as well. Lots of driving, shoulders naturally always my shoulders, lots of playing the piano at funny angles. So yoga, I would just feel so different after I would do the classes, whether it was a slow restorative class or, you know, a quicker vinyasa, sweaty class. I'd always come out and just feel that sense of, oh, okay, I'm ready now. I'm ready to, I say face the day. I always had to go in the evenings because of my work schedule, but I'd be ready to walk home.
Face the world.
Yes, and do my emails. There we go.
Exactly, yeah.
So yeah, I came to yoga a bit later actually, but it just changed so much for me, and then obviously led me on to different things.
Yeah, but I mean, to be thrown in at the deep end as well, that getting into that 3-hour class, you know, I mean, sometimes it takes that to kind of shake you and go, wow, actually, this is something I really like, rather than, you know, dipping your toe some part into it, but you kind of went full on and then found that it really meant something to you, and you continued with it, which is really cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll always remember that as just such a fond memory, and so strange.
Yeah.
But brilliant. And again, you know, outside of my comfort zone, because I was still at that time someone that, you know, when I performed, I didn't use I struggled using my arms and gestures and things. I was still very kind of locked up, I guess. And I didn't like doing things. I suppose it's a bit of a British thing as well. You know, I've always been quite reserved, and just doing something like that, especially with people I hadn't ever met before, that was new to me, and just, you know, completely different. So yeah, I suppose it was the start of a good journey into my 20s, late 20s.
And so then how did you come to, what would have been a big moment or a big experience that made you decide that you wanted to connect yoga with singing? When was that point?
It's bizarrely, well, someone I worked with a few years ago, I'd said I was just doing yoga, and she went, oh yeah, you should read this book called Yoga for Singers. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And, you know, I'd made a note of it and kind of not got much further at the time. And then there was one class at my yoga studio. I don't know if you've heard of Kundalini yoga. It's something that I read the description and I thought, that sounds awful, but it was the only one I could go to that week. And I was like, I'm just going to go.
Wow.
And I say it sounds awful again, because I wouldn't even in a yoga class because I felt self-conscious. I'd feel a bit like, oh God, you know, even though everyone's in their own practice, which I realize now. So Kundalini yoga is always an hour and a half, and it's set around different, they're called kriyas, so they have a different theme. And every single thing, you always have your breath. So every breath on every single movement. And there's lots of chanting, which is why I said, to me, it sounded awful, because, I mean, and that's as a singer. Can you imagine someone else who's reserved and British thinking, oh God, chanting?
Yeah, sure.
But I went, and it was the first yoga class I've been to where we're in a semicircle around the teacher, and instead of just in rows. And she had like a speaker and a scented candle, which I love because that's one of my favorite things in the world. And everything's with music. So, you know, you do something for like 3 minutes, and it's connected to the music and the beat and everything, and the breath follows the music.
Wow.
And then lots of meditation. And I always thought meditation was just sitting quietly on your own, but a lot of these were moving meditations where you would do, you know, some sort of movement, and you'd follow the breath, or you would chant on like one note at the same time. And it's crazy intense, but I've never felt so good after that first class. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was so proud of myself for doing something that I thought was really bizarre. And my body felt so free, like that sense of being able to breathe really well. I just had this sense of like walking on air almost as I left the class, and my voice just felt amazing. And it was like, oh, that was really interesting. And one thing when I do my classes now, I do want them to be accessible. I don't want anyone to think, oh, you know, chanting, but actually we do vocalizing, which is kind of similar, but with not using the, all of the chants. Instead, it's kind of using vowels and consonants and making those sounds. So it has a similar effect, but it's more accessible. So I started to do that in my practice at home, to kind of take elements from that class and think, oh, I really liked that bit. How could I just apply that to my own practice? And then I just started to find really things that were really working for me and working for my practice. And then I got that book, Yoga for Singers.
And then you got the book.
And then I got the book. Yeah. So I was like, oh, yoga and singing. I was like, oh, someone mentioned that book. So I got the book, and then I started reading more. I'm an eternal studier. I love doing courses and things. So just started reading up more. And then it kind of went from there, really. Started to put it all together a bit more officially, because I was like, I want to share this. So making notes of what from the books I felt kind of I connected with and related to, and I thought would like benefit my students as well. And then things that I found from my own practice as well.
Yeah. And with the Kundalini yoga, I think I've only, the only reason that I know it is actually through Russell Brand. So I'm a big Russell, right? I'm a big Russell Brand follower and fan for many, many years, and his videos on YouTube, and he does this beautiful Kundalini. I mean, when I say beautiful, very intense Kundalini yoga video.
Oh, does he? I know he's an advocate of it, but I didn't realize that. Oh.
It's really incredible, because he does the whole all of this.
Yeah.
It's so, and then he gets down to this really nice like a chant, but with, obviously it's a chant with I'm not sure what language, or maybe it's just syllables, or
well, it's all it tends to come from Sanskrit.
Yeah, right.
Like the one we would do in Kundalini is Sat Nam. So you do Sat Nam, and that, like loads of other ones like that as well.
And have you've obviously been in choirs as well, right?
Yes, I've been at many times in choirs.
And so could you equate in a way the Kundalini practice of the group chanting with a choir experience? Is it very different? Is it very similar?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it depends what choir, because the last choir I was in, which I absolutely loved, we'd sight read most of it, which for me was a dream, but you'd always be a bit on edge.
Yeah.
So I think if you were in a choir, if it was something that was quite, in unison, or, homophonic, trying not to use too musical words depending who's listening, then it's something where you're all very together. And, they talk about these studies where people's heartbeats sync when they're singing together. Then I can imagine, it definitely would be a similar experience. And it's strange when you are doing a Kundalini class, because you do get you feel like you could be on your own in this own place, but actually then you'll hear someone else. And to be honest, people aren't singers. Everyone's singing on different notes, even though there is a track playing, because it's just everyone's doing it for themselves. And these are people that are open to doing it, and they don't care what pitch they sing on. But it's almost hypnotic, but it is that vibe of just being together.
Yeah,
so definitely.
Yeah. And what's the, I know I'll get to my next question as well, but do you have any, and this is a curveball question, but do you have any, do you have any experience, or do you have any views on the connection between singing and the vagus nerve?
Yes, I'm obsessed with it at the moment.
Oh, excellent. Super. Oh, thank God.
Yeah. So I say, like, the thought of omming in class used to freak me out. And now I'm like, oh, that's why you do an om in yoga, because the humming stimulates it. And it kicks in your parasympathetic nervous system. And then it helps you to feel free, and it helps your body to go into that more restful place. So yes, I've actually been reading some articles really recently. I want to know more, because on my yoga teacher training, you learn about the parasympathetic nervous system, but not, it's not a specific part of it. And I want to know more basically about the vagus nerve. I'm just so fascinated by everything I've read recently. And, it's all connected a lot to your digestion as well, which then when people have performance anxiety and things, that's all connected too. And of course, singing and yoga are two things that are recommended to stimulate it. Yes.
And breathing. I mean, this is with
well, of course,
with Wim Hof, like this is, or Wim Hof or whatever.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. And just for people, just whoever's listening, and for people watching as well, the vagus nerve is the nerve that connects from the bottom of your brain, I guess, right, or the bottom of your cortex here, I think, and goes.
I think we need to read more.
Yeah, we will definitely research more, but it's a nerve that goes right down to your reproductive system and connects in many different parts, as Rosie said, to your digestive system. And there's two parts of the nerve that connect on top of your vocal tract and below it as well. And it really is something that, like you, Rosie, I want to really get into and learn much more about. There's many things out there, but there's also it's not a rabbit hole, but it's very interesting when you go down because there are so many things about it,
Yeah.
But cool. Whew, thank God. Okay, excellent. Okay, so my next one is alignment, breathing, focus, freedom, and well-being. Can you talk us through some of those words, or all of those words, and what they mean to you, or what you how you convey these words in your practice?
Yeah, so when I was sitting down and thinking, if I was going to put together a yoga for singers class, what do I think are some key components really, and those kind of stood out as being benefits of doing this practice. And all of them really are just, and doing a practice or a class is just to gain awareness. It's awareness of your body and your voice. It's not forcing anything to happen. It's just noticing things, noticing what you naturally do. If you feel you might have to adjust something, trying different things, and then seeing the benefit for you. So alignment is interesting in singing because there's that thing of, you're in choir, stand up straight. You can't, your spine is curved. You can't stand up straight. There's a lot of things in yoga as well. Like we call it flat back or find a neutral spine. It's like, what is that? Because it's different for everyone. But, I think alignment is just everything just stacking nicely in your body. As soon as something's, see teenagers, many of my teenage girl students sink into one hip and you just see everything go out of line, and then your neck has to balance it to go the other way, and then your larynx is completely on one side, and that's just not going to help your voice. So it's not standing up straight, it's just thinking about things being in line so that everything can work as effectively as possible really. And in yoga you learn, I think I did 100 hours anatomy and postures for my yoga teacher training. It was heavy, but It was so interesting because all the alignment for the postures come from mountain pose or Tadasana, which is just standing. That's the standing posture. So if you're in, I'm trying to think of something that people know. Oh, if you're in plank, everything is actually in your mountain pose. Then it's just your arms that are forward. So it's how that connects. But the rest of your body is trying to keep that alignment. If you're, for example, I don't know, warrior one, your hips are facing forward. So your upper body is still going to be in your mountain pose in your alignment. And then the legs are just doing something else. So you're constantly thinking about your alignment when you're in these postures. So it's just, again, becoming aware of patterns and hopefully improving, the more yoga you do will help to improve your alignment without you having to think about it. So you don't have to think, I must do this with my pelvis, I must do this. And it's just exploring as well. Who wants to spend 15 minutes of a singing lesson going, okay, so make sure your knees are relaxed, make sure your spine is doing this. Like, you can just find, it's an easier way to feel comfortable with what your go-to alignment would be when you're singing, really.
Yeah, and it's really, it's searching for that the most natural or the most comfortable or most tension-free alignment for yourself.
100%. Yeah. I've very much, as I've started over the last few years to think, you know, a holistic approach, whole body. It's, you know, something, you know, this from, you know, working with voices anyway, like something that works for one person won't work for another person. It's like you have to try different things, and it's finding what works for you. A neutral spine for someone in one posture might look really different to someone else. And yeah, if something looks very, you know, like it's going the wrong way, you think, oh, you might want to adjust that slightly to make it better for you. And that's something that yoga's great for exploring. You know, how can you find the best alignment for you?
Beautiful. Yeah. And with breathing then.
Yes, breathing. It's so funny, isn't it? Like breathing's the most natural thing, should be the most natural thing in the world. And so many singers, you know, get really stuck, or they try and think too much about their breathing technique, that they end up doing more harm than good, because they're like, oh, I must do this. I must release my abdominals, but then I need to control this. Oh, do I support? What does that mean? Do I engage? And again, a few things about yoga that I found were helping me. There we go. Were that your breathing is connected to the movement, so you're always having this constant flow of in, out, and it was very connected. And again, certain postures, you can really just release your abdominals and just really think, oh yeah, that's what it feels like when they are released. How does that feel when I breathe? And then you're going to be in another posture where your core is engaged, so you have to breathe into the ribs more laterally, so you get used to how that feels. And then in a forward fold, you might feel your breath more in your back. And it's just, again, just exploring how you can find breath that works for you, and again might work, depending on what you're singing, work differently in different ways. And then also, you know, certain yoga flows are great for like opening up the ribs. So certain side stretches, you're going to really feel the breath differently, going to stretch those intercostals, and, you know, your ribs. And what was I talking about? No, the psoas muscle. I was talking about this recently as well. Sorry, I've gone off on a tangent.
No,
we're talking about breathing. No, it is.
No, it's great.
It is connected to breathing.
What's the name of the muscle?
So the psoas, it's PSOAS, is a huge muscle that goes down the front of your hips and through your pelvis, and it kind of connects your upper body to your legs and stuff. It's actually connected to your diaphragm. And if your hip flexors are a bit stuck, you're not going to be able to breathe properly.
Wow.
Because then you won't have as much movement in, you know, your diaphragm. And I think again, I'd have to go back to my anatomy books, but I'm sure it's kind of connected to your spine, your ribs, maybe. It's definitely connected to your diaphragm. So much anatomy in my head. So yeah, things like yoga, being in a posture, stretching your hip flexors might even help your breathing.
Wow.
Because it's that thing of everything's connected, really. Again, slightly off on a tangent. I was driving recently and I knew I'd been on the motorway for a while. I was gripping my ankle when I was on the accelerator, and I realized that had made me tense my jaw.
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh God, yeah, everything really is connected.
Yeah.
And then I recently strained a muscle, my trapezius, that's kind of near your shoulder blades. And I was really struggling to breathe, get a full breath because of a slight strain. And it just makes you think, you know, how one thing in one part of your body might offset something else. So I think just having a practice that is a full body experience whilst connecting to your breath constantly is just really beneficial. And, you know, you need to think about breathing when you're singing. You obviously do. But just, I think if you do practice yoga, you start to build more of an awareness in a different way. And then I think you can just apply some of those things to your singing. And it's definitely worked for me.
I think also with the topic of breathing for singers, it's always such a yeah, it's always such a topic that every singing student comes in and knows that they have to practice it. So they come in and they know that what you're going to do is with them is a bit of breathing exercises. And I think it's the fact sometimes that people don't take the time to really, like you said, like with yoga or with really practicing it, like finding the awareness of how does it actually feel when I use my diaphragm to extend or to expand and use my intercostal muscles, and where am I actually finding the breath? Is it more in my throat? And people don't, sometimes I feel, don't ask these questions. And then when it comes to performance time, they think, oh my God, yeah, I have to think of breathing. And then they haven't practiced it, which means it's just anxiety upon anxiety, and then it just becomes out of control. And so what I like what you're saying is that, and what I like about the Vox yoga basically is this thing of adding a sense of calmness and meditative practice like yoga, even though it can be intense and so, but to incorporate this side of becoming aware of your breath, which then can connect to your singing. And then that brings me on to the next one, which is focus.
Yeah. It's one of those words as well. You know, what does focus mean? It could be related to your practice, building a practice schedule, or having control when you're singing certain phrases. I think, you know, yoga is really good for your control and your focus just in general, and balance, because it helps you, you know, it balances your breath. It makes you, like you said, more calm. It makes you, maybe it's meditation or a balancing posture. You have to focus on one thing. The mind has to be focused, because if you're in a balancing posture and you're not thinking, you're not looking at that point, you're not focusing on the muscles engaging, you're going to fall over. You'll wobble. So it's just starting to build up that sense of being able to focus on something, and kind of talk a lot in yoga about like mental clarity, which as a creative person, I am absolutely terrible at. I'm someone that I shut my eyes at night and I'm like, oh, ideas, songs, what am I doing tomorrow? And I'm, you know, it's probably the thing I'm worst at. But when I'm doing yoga, I do, you know, I find that I actually can focus on maybe one thing more than one thing, but, you know, on what I'm doing at that time. And I think then you can, again, translate those skills into singing, whether it's, oh, I always make 40 minutes for my yoga practice, so I'm going to do the same for singing. It might be that, or it might be, okay, when I'm singing this phrase, I know I need to think about this technically. I know I need to do this. So that's what I'm going to focus on this run through, you know. So I suppose it's a phrase that I learned many years ago when applying for jobs: transferable skills. Nice. Maybe, yeah, I'm going to use it. But I think it's the approach. It's how you approach things. Because I think for me, like I said, when I first started yoga and thinking about yoga and singing, my mind was all over the place because I was just so busy and, you know, trying to, you know, build up your own work, but then trying to perform, as well as I was teaching 6 days a week, but then sometimes performing on a Friday night, get home at 2 a.m, get up at 7 to go and teach. And, you know, I couldn't focus very well at all because I just had too much going on. But then doing yoga, I just found, I was like, oh yes, I can manage this. Yeah. Because I just looked at things a bit differently and how to approach them. And then ultimately I did change my schedule. At the time. I did have to have that schedule. So yoga was very useful for me at that time.
I think, and I love what you're saying as well about how it can, once you focus on one thing, you allow your brain to come down to a level that you're able to really maybe, I mean, from my personal experience as well with meditation, it elevates my appreciation. After meditation, it elevates my appreciation and alleviates some of the stress that my ego puts on me. You know, so that's one way in which after a meditation or after a moment that I take for whether it's with a mantra or whether it's just awareness and that sort of stuff, it really allows you to come down to a place of feeling calm and in some way alleviated from some of the stress that you might put yourself on if when your mind is at 90.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. And we often talk about feeling grounded in yoga and in singing. And again, what does grounded mean? I think it's different for different people, but it's that sense of just, yes, the ground is supporting me. Yes. I'm here and I'm present, and it, definitely helps with that.
There was a lot. My brother also went to Mountview.
Right.
And my dad is a director and a producer and had a theatre school in the town that I'm from, or the city that I'm from, in Limerick. And when I was growing up, I used to, from 4 years old, I was going into these classes, and he used to get us to walk around the space, animal thing as well,
yes.
But also he used to do this thing, and I never understood it when I was younger. But then when I started teaching, I really understood what he meant. He always said, walk around the space, find your space, feel the floor under your feet, feel the space around your head, and have like a barrel of space around you, so that you have this awareness of your space and the ground under your feet, and feel every step, and feel the heel or the toes, which hits first, and feel the space above your head, which allows you then to elongate your spine. And it's really, as you were saying, it's this kind of thing of awareness and feeling, and that's what yoga, and in singing, it's just exactly what we need.
Yeah. And also, just leading on from what you're saying, it is finding the method that works for you, because like animal studies, for some people, that was like, yes, this is great. Or doing things like that. I would have done loads of that when I was younger as well. And I'm sure, it would have worked at the time, but it wasn't something obviously that stuck with me to help me get rid of all that extra tension or, mind cloud that I was holding. And, yoga might not work for everyone. It's just something to try, because it is a different approach and a different look at awareness as well.
Absolutely.
And I think we do just, when you're younger, sometimes just you try these things, you're like, oh, no. Well, I tried yoga, didn't I? When I was like 20, I was like, no, not for me. Look at me now.
Yeah, exactly. But also, actually, now that just before I go on to the last two words, I tried out this morning before we rang. I tried out your 10-minute. Oh God, what was the name of it?
Which one?
The 10-minute yoga for practice room. So 10-minute reset for singers.
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I just have to say, I absolutely loved it. I think it's so important, these kinds of practices and these kind of 10-minute moments for us, especially in this time of COVID and working from home, and even singing. I love what you said as well for musicians. I think musicians forget a lot of the time that they are with an instrument. So there is going to, like for a saxophone player, there has to be a small bit of tension. And unless you, maybe reset or at least relieve yourself of tension for 10 minutes, it can just build and build and build. And what I'm saying basically is that 10 minutes was really, really cool. And I would recommend anyone listening and watching to go and check it out, because
I was going to say, I actually filmed that because you probably saw I was at the college that I work at, and the new schedule with COVID, because this was back in, I think, November, was that you'd have an hour, 15-minute break, hour lesson, 15-minute break, because of the changeover in the groups and everything. And because I do repertoire coaching accompanying the piano, I always end up like this. I'm on a piano stool, 8 hours of lessons. So I was finding in those 10, 15 minutes, I would always do some of those upper body exercises or spine rolls. And I was like, oh God, I feel amazing. So I was like, well, of course, other people might need a bit of guidance if they're not sure what to do and they're feeling the same.
Absolutely.
So again, most things that I put out there come from things that I've just discovered, or things that I need or my students need. I hope that it will help other people.
I believe that it will. And I love this one. I love the
eagle
cheek, because it's so incredibly amazing from my back and everything. It spreads my shoulder blades, and it's really, and I love how you, anyway, people should go and listen and watch it. It's really fantastic.
Thank you.
Because there are also moments in it where that I always incorporate some sort of these into my lessons with my students. in the music school and also private lessons. I try and take at least 5 minutes or however many minutes it needs. If I ask my student how they're feeling, if they're feeling maybe a bit down, or if they're feeling maybe a bit tense, or they had a really stressful day at work, or they just came from sport and they're really hyped up. It's really nice to, as you did, the figure of 8, the very soft movements with your neck, and also the twisting. But I'm going to incorporate this one, which is the wall, which I never used before.
Yeah, it's looking
really
around,
great.
it's seeing what you've got handy, really.
Yeah, but it's great. I mean, that holding onto the wall and going to the side, and again, opens up your chest. It's beautiful.
That was one actually that I got given for physio about 4 years ago, when I had problems from playing piano and driving so much. And he gave me that exercise, and the release is just amazing, isn't it?
It's so satisfying.
Yeah, really good.
So anyway, yes, definitely everyone go check it out. I'll put the link in the show notes. So the last 2 words are freedom and well-being. So
I mean, they kind of fit together, don't they?
In a small bit,
freedom. It's like, I don't know, don't we all want to feel free when we sing? As someone who, no one ever said this to me when I was training. I look back at my 4th year. We had a DVD made of one of my final year productions. And I sing like this. For anyone listening, my shoulders are up to my ears, slightly rounded forward. Like no one ever mentioned it to me. And vocally, actually, I was quite good because I was practicing for 3 hours a day, and every day I was in, professional training. So vocally, I did feel good, but I wonder how I might have been different, how I might have sang differently or performed differently. I look back, I don't think it's very comfortable to watch, actually, someone on stage that, like, it's just so closed. My chest just looks closed, a bit hunched, and it's, I'm not embodying the performance at all. And now when I sing, I'm not afraid to use my arms and gestures, even if I'm just, singing jazz now. I can feel the music much more because I feel like I'm in control of my body, and it is that sense of feeling free. And yes, sometimes you need to do a high belt note, you need to engage muscles, but you can still have a sense of freedom. It's not you're not getting tense in your larynx at all. Obviously, unless you're using constriction as a contemporary technique. But you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
I do.
But you don't want to do like, oh God, no, that felt tight. We want that sense of release and freedom. Feeling free is going to, again, mean something different or feel different to different people. But that's one thing for me that's really just changed over the last 4 or 5 years. My body and my voice, really. And also, and my attitude towards my voice, I think, and performing and everything.
And I think also, as you said, when you look at a performance, and if someone is closed, when you do the opposite, when you open up and when you allow people to see the full you, and it really is so inviting, and it's a communicative expression between you and the audience, you and the music, you and the song, you and the lyric. And I think it's, as you said, if it's not so enjoyable to watch someone, and also for the performer yourself, it's probably not as enjoyable as it would be if you were open, if you were ready, if you were allowing yourself to be vulnerable. Because it is, I mean, this feels like you're being safe, but actually this is more vulnerable.
Yes,
definitely, yeah. And that's when the spark, the magic, the beauty happens, I guess, between audience and singer.
Yeah. And of course, I'm not saying, if you do yoga, you're suddenly going to be feeling confident and free on stage, but you never know. It might help you. Exactly. It might be a little tool that will help you on the way.
Right. Yeah. And so then that brings us on to well-being.
Yes.
Right? So this is really important.
It's obviously just so important, as people, our physical well-being, our emotional well-being are so important. But for our voice, I felt it. I sat on the sofa for about 2 weeks over Christmas and New Year. And my voice felt awful when I came back to it. Because I'd had quite a busy last term. I was like, no, I'm just going to have a break. And actually, I don't think I should have done that. I think I should have been a bit more active. But when I came back and my physical well-being had been a bit rubbish, vocally, I was like, oh God, I feel tired. I felt really, it was hard to get back to it. And also that then affected my mental well-being. So I was like, oh God, why is my voice? Oh, I feel so sluggish. This isn't good. And for my first, time, I was like, I'm just going to do a few exercises. It wasn't that fun for me to sing because I'd let both of those things slip. And yes, we should have a break over Christmas and and breaks are good, but it's what you're doing in that time sometimes might not always be beneficial.
Yeah.
And, it is that whole holistic approach, really, knowing that your physical well-being will probably have an effect on your emotional well-being, which then they may have an effect on your vocal well-being. Is that a phrase? Vocal health,
sure.
Maybe. Yeah, vocal well-being. Let's make it one. Yeah. So yeah, everyone knows how if you feel like you're holding in emotion, you feel that horrible lump in your throat. And it's, if students sometimes get upset in a lesson and then they try and sing, it's very unstable and it's very difficult to vocalize unless you let it out and then move past it. I'm starting to realize often. So yoga's been, there's been so many studies that it helps your well-being in many ways. And so it may be that then if it helps to improve your physical well-being, emotional well-being, then vocally you might feel a bit better as well.
Yeah. I like that. I also it's such a classic case, right, of getting the lump in your throat when you become emotional. And I can't remember what performance I watched recently of someone, God, I can't remember it now, but it was someone that was singing, must have been musical theater. I don't think it was a classical piece or an aria, but someone was singing it and I was watching them and they were so emotive and so emotionally connected to the song that they were able to allow themselves get to that point where the lump is in the throat, but to use it as an effect for the character, or to go through it, to not fight against it, to kind of go through it and use it, which is also, I'm sure, not so easy to do.
God, very skillful. I'm sure. Oh,
very skillful.
Yeah,
I'm really annoyed I can't remember the person now. I'm sure you'd know him or her. Anyway, but yes, super cool. I love it. So, right. So let me look. I want to make sure that I want to get these questions in. Yeah. Okay. So I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I have 3 more questions that I think would be really interesting for people. So, are there any small exercises that beginners can start with for yoga and singing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first of all, I think it's doing something that probably isn't specifically downward dog, a proper yoga flow. It's just starting to think about how the body, the breath and movement connects and the voice and movement. So even like the most simplest thing, lifting your arms out overhead while you inhale. Go and then exhale out, and then start to add a sound, sigh out on the exhale, then change it to SOVT or a slide, full voice, and then just see how that feels, because instantly you'll get that connection. One of my other favorite things to do when probably in nearly all of my Yoga for Singers workshops is just to find some movement when you're stood up. So maybe your knees are bent a little bit and just swinging from the hips, side to side, arms are following, head's following. Then just starting to add maybe a zzz as you're moving, and then starting to slide and actually doing a bit of vocalizing. Zzz. I'm on a spinny chair now, so I'm actually doing it. And it's just finding that, I'm connecting movement and the voice, even singing when you walk around the room, things like that. And then it's starting to, if you do a bit of yoga already, doing some simple yoga and then thinking, okay, instead of just doing an exhale, what happens if I add a s to my exhale, just to make you more aware and change the feel of the breath, maybe start to engage different muscles. change your s to a z. And then when you're comfortable with that, you can explore vowels, or ultimately singing and sing and flow. Do a yoga flow and sing a song. Or sing a song in a posture. Like singing in downward facing dog, I actually enjoy. Sometimes. It depends how you're feeling that day. You know, singing in a forward fold for me gives me a standing forward fold gives loads of release, and just really explores resonance differently, like because your head's nearly at your feet.
Yeah, sure.
If you're in a forward fold, you get this really different resonance. So it's just, you know, taking little steps, seeing what works for you. Don't jump in at the deep end. Don't just start, never done yoga before. Okay, I'm going to do a yoga video and just sing at the same time, because it won't coordinate. It's starting to just experience, okay, how does my breath connect to the movement? How can I change that to voice? And find that sense of release as well.
And are there any sensations that when people do try maybe a yoga flow or a flow with singing, are there any sensations that people should be aware of that might be in some way not dangerous, but maybe some way harmful? Or
yeah, well, really I'm always very conscious. I do change some things when I'm teaching slightly about like neck position, because if you're in Warrior 2, again, I'm spin my chair, traditionally your neck would be looking forward, like over your arms. So your neck would be completely to the side, which if you're singing, that might not be the best thing to do. So I do I always do it. I'm going to steal from Adrian, find what feels good, yoga with Adrian.
Yoga with Adrian. Super.
But I'm always, you know, do what feels right for you, because it can feel totally weird singing and moving in that way, which is why you want a bit of a practice first. But neck position, I think, is one of those things that you've just got to be very, very conscious of. Thinking about, traditionally in yoga, you might look up to the sky in that posture, but I'm going to vocalize. So I'm going to maybe have a bit of movement in my neck as I vocalize, or think about the alignment in relation to the torso. And of course, as with everything, if it doesn't feel good, stop. Don't do it. Think, why didn't that feel good? Should I do it a bit differently? Or is that something that doesn't work for me? Or do I need to look at it, you know, in a different way?
Yeah, so to reflect on what the sensation was, and to kind of ask yourself those questions. Yeah,
and I do that when I'm teaching singing anyway. You know, I always say to a student after if we do a sing through, how did that feel? And they're like, oh, you know, that wasn't very good. It's like, why? Be specific. Think. Yeah. What was it? Was it the sound you didn't like, or was it the sensations? Was it something physically that was uncomfortable? Because you don't want that. So it is, you're right, a bit of reflecting. Think, what works for me? Because like we were saying before, with maybe you need to calm down or energize, something that, you know, someone might need something that's really calming in a held posture with their eyes shut, just doing vowels. Someone might be like, I need energy. I'm a very physical person. And for them, doing a bit of a flow and adding some singing phrases or doing a song in a posture is going to be really, really good. But it's just exploring that, which is why I like to think of when I do the workshops, it's like an exploration. It's kind of giving different offerings. And I always say, you know, you might just end up doing zzz on your exhale in the vocalizing bits, and that's fine. Or you might end up doing a bit of a sing, or you're going to just stand still and breathe. If that's what you need at that point, because everyone is so different. And I want it to be accessible, because if I'd have heard yoga and singing about, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, I would have been like, what? That's so weird. Doing yoga and singing, because at that point, my mind would have been like, no, that's not for me.
Sure.
Because I hadn't explored that yet. I'm very honest and open about, you know, how I've got to where I am, and, you know, how things change for me, and, you know, how my experiences kind of made me realize that these things can be really good. So I want people to realize that everyone's experience will be different. Sure. And it's just finding what's the best thing for you on that day.
And so this is what you do. So you offer workshops, correct?
Well, yeah. So obviously I do like regular singing teaching as well. But then, over the past few months, actually, I've been doing a lot more of kind of just hour-long workshops, which are, I suppose, more of a yoga flow, but obviously some are going to be more restorative, others a bit more active, but then exploring the voice as well. And sometimes that will just be, let's do a 5-10 minute flow and then stand still and sing a couple of phrases and see how it feels. Or it'll be finding some simple postures and vocalizing in those postures. So exploring resonance. So yeah, on my YouTube channel, I've kind of got little 10-minute clips. I say this because I put one out yesterday, which I just really liked. You know, you do something, you're like, yeah, I think people will like this, which was just exploring resonance in just 5 different postures. So child's pose, which is when you're kneeling on your knees on the floor with your torso forward, so your forehead's actually on the floor on the mat, so your face is right next to the floor or the mat. So don't do it on a messy carpet. The resonance you feel just doing like V or a Z is just so interesting to explore. And then I think, I can't remember what we did, you know, tabletop hands and knees, downward dog, forward fold, and then standing, just to see how it feels. Because some of these postures you get much more head resonance. Some of them you just get more of a sense of release. So it's just, it's kind of just an exploration of what works for you.
And I guess what's so cool is that especially with this video yesterday, which you posted, was that, you know, sometimes it's very difficult when you're in a singing lesson to say, okay, let's use our head resonance now, or I want you to feel it in your mask, or I want you to feel it now more in the back of your throat, or I want all of these sensations that is very hard to manipulate. So I guess maybe what's really cool about these yoga positions or flows, plus the vocal or the phonation or the vocalization, is that you get kind of like a quicker, maybe not, I don't want to say quicker, but like a more direct path to that resonance.
A different experience. I know, because I've always, I mean, even when I was training, I'd have people like, I'd have to put your hands on your head to feel head resonance. I've never, ever felt anything when I put my hands on my head. You can on your chest much more, but I've never felt it. And, you know, it is just finding, and that's from singing, training as a classical soprano as well, when it's all about head resonance. And it's like, you know, I wish I'd done it sooner, because you do really feel it. And so it's just like, okay, I understand that. Obviously it's going to feel totally different when you're stood up, but it's just having that experience
to know where it's going, at least, or to know where to maybe look for it next time when you're standing up.
A bit of muscle memory and kind
absolutely.
of just taking that little snapshot and just remembering how it felt.
And so what would you see, I want to see if before a performance, and we're going to wrap it up pretty soon, but before a performance, and people, as you said, people are very different. Some people want the calmness of it. Some people want to get into a Zen zone, and other people want to get energized and want to be ready to engage with their diaphragm and to get that belting note, or to release some sort of energy when they're on stage. Are there short breathing exercises or exercises in general that performers or singers or teachers or voice users can use before they need to perform or use?
Again, I'm not saying they're going to substitute your vocal warm-up or anything, but and it's depending what you need. So, you know, the ones I mentioned earlier with connecting your inhale and your arms and exhale, adding some sound, those are always great. If you're feeling, you know, you need a bit more to kind of reset, a bit more calming, something like a spine roll, but adding sound is really good as well. And again, that could just be a siren, or it could be a full-on scale. Something like that is really good. And then when you come back up, obviously checking in with your alignment, doing it again. And then like a calming breathing technique I always recommend for pre-performance would be like alternate nostril breathing, because that helps slow the breath, calm. It's said to balance both sides of your body as well, like both sides of the brain. So you inhale through one nostril, out through the other. in, out, something like that is great. And then if you need to get fired up, something like a standing vinyasa is really good. Again, connecting breath to movement, but then your exhales, you can always add sound. Again, I can't really do it here. I've got a video on my YouTube. Actually, I've got a reel on Instagram where I was in a practice room. I was like, this is a standing vinyasa. Nice. So it's basically inhale, arms up, standing, exhale, you forward fold. Inhale, lift your flat back, exhale, forward fold, inhale, arms up, standing, exhale, mountain. And it's just, it can be so quick.
Yes.
And then on your exhales, as you fold forward, you can again add some vocalizing, sing a scale, an exercise, hold your forward fold, something like that's really energizing. And then the breath you mentioned earlier that Russell Brand does, your Kapalabhati, breath of fire, which gets your core fired up. Gets everything kind of, again, getting you aware of the muscles you might need to be using,
right,
is fantastic as well. And then that kind of translates into some more traditional singing exercises that you might do as well.
I love that. I love the standing vinyasa, right? It's called
vinyasa? Yes. So a traditional vinyasa, vinyasa flows like the whole type of, that type of yoga, but standing vinyasa is just taking out the plank and the downward dog.
Right.
So which means you can do it anywhere.
Exactly. Yeah. I have to say, like the 10-minute video that I did before we came on had a standing vinyasa at the end.
Ah, right. Oh, yes, of course. Yeah.
It was so good because also I've done yoga before, and especially in the first lockdown, I was doing it quite often. And I was doing these vinyasas quite slowly, because I was going into a downward facing dog, or I was going into a plank, or I was, but then today at the end, it was quite quick, which was this energizing thing. And I was like, whoa, I was like, this is fantastic. I was like, one more.
Yeah. And sometimes you can do it, but you could do 3 breaths per movement. You could hold that flat back for 3 breaths and do it really calming, or a very slow version of it as well. It's very adaptable.
Yes.
And I actually thought that I'd coined the phrase standing vinyasa when I was doing a workshop. And I was like, I'm going to take out down dog and planks. I want it to be, it's one of the first ones. I want it to be accessible. I was like, okay, I think we could do it like this. Oh, that's like a standing vinyasa. And then I realized that actually it's something that has existed for a very long time.
But cool that you came to it. Yeah, exactly. It means that you were on the right track.
Exactly.
Super. Nice. Well, Rosie, I love this. This was so interesting. I think singing and yoga, are 2 such beautiful practices. And I love the fact that you're combining them. And I love the fact that you're so active. Like, I was looking back on your Instagram yesterday as well. And I think your first Instagram post was the 20th of June, 2020.
Yeah, it was about then when I was like, I need to really put this out there.
But the amount of content, the amount of content that you're putting out there for people to watch and for free is just really, really super. And thank you. No, thank you. And so how can people get in contact with you? How can people, I know it's probably, there's a link in the bio, but maybe you can tell us a small bit.
Yeah, so I have a website, voxyoga.co.uk, where you can just find out a little bit more. I've got like a little FAQ thing on there as well for people that might be apprehensive, as I do individual lessons as well. But then group workshops I've been doing for a few different organisations recently, but I'm going to be doing some of my own as well. So I've got some plans for those coming up. Instagram is the best place, Vox Yoga with Rosie. And again, that just links to my Facebook. So I'll see it more if it's on Instagram. So it's, that kind of gives you a taste really. And then YouTube, obviously I do weekly videos, which kind of 10, 15 minutes might just be little tips of how to approach, not how to approach, there's lots of different methods. An approach you could try to help you do, find release or something, or, a short flow to release the hips, like we said, to work on that muscle that might help your breathing. So again, that gives you a little taste. And then if you think, oh yeah, actually, I'd like to properly try an hour class, then I'm going to be doing some of those coming up. So keep an eye on Instagram, as that's, or my website, Instagram, really. It'll be there first.
Yeah, exactly. It's always first on Instagram and then goes everywhere else.
Oh my gosh, do you know what? I've got 100% of all my Yoga for Singers work, clients, individual, through Instagram. Yeah.
There you go. Absolutely. And for this also, for the podcast, for the Let's Talk Singing, the only way that I've been in contact and been able to be in contact with people like yourself and past guests is through Instagram. And
Yeah.
as we said before we started, it's kind of, I equated it to like the new meeting in the pub, or meeting in the restaurant, right? Where people can share ideas for free, and like-minded people, and it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also it's really nice. It's like it's become more of a community this year. Well, last year, this year, recently.
Yeah, recently, right? Yeah. So okay, so great. So I think that's all my questions.
Yeah.
I really want to thank you again. This was so enjoyable. It was really nice to speak with
I'm
you.
so glad. Yeah, it's so nice to just talk about it, actually. And it is one of those things that I think people don't think, oh, I'm a singer. I might do yoga for singers. I think you stumble upon it. And you're like, oh, yeah, God, that sounds like that could really work for me. I think people don't really know it's out there. So it's nice to kind of, talk about it a bit more.
I think so too. Yeah. And I guess maybe the last thing that I maybe want to ask is when you as a listener, do you hear the difference between people that have done yoga, breathing awareness exercises, and people that haven't?
That's so interesting.
Here,
I don't know with hearing, listening maybe so much. I think you can often hear if someone's holding a bit of unnecessary tension, but I think visually, you can see if someone's connected to their body and just thinking about their voice, their body as a whole instrument. And it might not be yoga, it might be something else that person's doing. It's just that connection, isn't it? I do think you can see if someone is, comfortable and has that sense of control and ease at the same time. Listening, though, I'm going to have to get back to you.
But I guess it's like the thing you said, at that point I think you said your mid-20s or so, that you actually felt then free, that you were able to use your arms and express. Yeah. I guess that's really the tell.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, maybe it was something else, but that was what it felt like it was at the time, because that was that change that was I knew was having an effect on me. Yeah. So, it's worked for me and it's worked for some of my students as well. So it's just nice to see positive change.
Absolutely. So everyone now, if you're a singer, which I'm sure most of you are that are listening and watching, if you're not, that's also completely fine. If you're a yoga lover, try out, as Rosie was saying, with some vocalizations or with some breathing, some sursh or whatever of those, and go and check out Rosie's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and website.
Yeah, there we go.
Nice. Okay, Rosie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been great.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk again on Instagram, I would say.
I'm sure.
Very sure. Okay, thank you very much, Rosie.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.